I'm here with the founder of FinCon and PTMoney.com, Philip Taylor. He's going to dive into the details around the new Paycheck Protection Program. That's the program that's providing assistance to small businesses around the U.S. during this financial crisis. And today we're going to talk to him about all of the details because it just might help your small business right now. Welcome to the show, PT.
Thanks for having me on, Andy. It's good to be chatting with you about this. I've done a deep dive on this subject for the past few days, and it's something that's personally interesting for me. So I'm looking forward to sharing more details with the audience.
Yeah, as a small business owner yourself, this is hitting home. So let's talk about the details. What is the Paycheck Protection Program?
Sure. First, a couple of caveats for the audience. This thing is changing fast, meaning it just became law, and the Treasury is now, and the SBA, Small Business Administration, are both now trying to implement this thing. And so as they implement it, they'll make some changes and the processes will sort of change. So keep that in mind as you listen to some of the details, that some may change over time. But I would definitely give you the general idea and the sentiment here, which I think is very positive for small business owners, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs. Secondly, I would just say, I am a CPA, but I am not your CPA listening. So, if you're ready to take advantage of some of this, run it by your bookkeeper, run it by your CPA, run it by your banker to make sure that, you're following all the rules here, because this is a big opportunity, but it comes with, they're trying to streamline it, make it fast, deliver the cash to business owners quickly, but it's still a legal there's a legal aspect to this that you want to make sure you're doing things correctly. So tread lightly. But the Paycheck Protection Program, all right, is part of the CARES Act that President Trump just signed in a response to this COVID-19 coronavirus crisis that we're going through here. The government, has forced closures across the country. Whether that's local municipalities or federal government suggestions. And so businesses are being damaged right now by having to close. Even online businesses now are starting to see the effects of this. So if you run a blog, you run a podcast, you have a YouTube channel, maybe traditional traffic and ad revenue for you is probably creeping down. Maybe some of your advertising partners are saying, you know what, we're going to hold off on working with you right now. So this is affecting our businesses. There's some negative effects. And more importantly, who knows what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks here. As of right now, this recording, the coronavirus is still kind of on an upward trend, and we haven't reached that peak yet. And so more things are going to happen. And so this is sort of a stopgap for the economy, for the country. The government is saying, you know what? We forced you to close, so here's some cash to kind of keep you afloat while you're closed. That's the whole essence of this. And even if the negative effects, I would say, haven't happened to you yet, they're probably going to come down at some point. And so this cash will come in handy to help you, pay for contractors, pay for your employees, pay yourself, and pay rent and keep things going. So that's the Paycheck Protection Program comes from that CARES Act. It's actually one of the first things mentioned in the act. All right. And a lot of people maybe glazed over because they were looking for the stimulus check information, which personally, that's a big benefit for people. But this is a really big benefit for small businesses. And the kicker here is that it's called a Paycheck Protection Program for a reason, because it's not really it is a loan, but it's not really, because there is such a massive loan forgiveness component to it. So here's how it works. All right. The Paycheck Protection Program is something that's going to be administered by banks that are SBA approved. So there's a bunch of banks across the country. Maybe your business bank is an SBA approved lender or bank. And so they're going to be the ones issuing this out, right? Taking applications, determining eligibility, and then delivering this loan. The cool thing about the loan, like I mentioned, is that if you use it for qualifying expenses over an 8-week period, once you get the money, and you submit evidence that you spent the money on those qualifying expenses, the loan, that portion of the loan is forgiven completely, right? So essentially, in effect, this becomes a grant to small business owners across the country to keep things going. So we can talk about like eligibility, how to calculate your loan amount, some of those things. I'm sure there's tons of questions people have. And there's lots of details with this, right? We're going to be able to cover the highlights here, but
Let's talk about who's eligible. That's a good place to start. I mean, is this for somebody who is a solopreneur that maybe doesn't have employees? Let's talk about that.
the way I interpreted the law and the way that the Treasury now has issued guidance. So the Treasury Department has issued actual sort of a borrower's guidance on this, and they state that applications for small businesses will begin on April 3rd. Applications for the self-employed will begin on April 10th. So they're acknowledging that this is for self-employed. All right, folks. So they're not explicit about what that means, but in my mind, what that means is someone who maybe just has business income on the side or has a small business that maybe they report that on a Schedule C, right, on their tax return. So to me, that's sort of the definition, even if you don't necessarily have employees, but you have business earnings. So again, they need to get more concrete with how they define that. I think the law interprets it that way, that it involves anyone who runs a business and has employees, runs a business and has contractors, or both, or is simply a solopreneur themselves and just generates income for themselves. Yeah. So I think that is what the law is stating. The Treasury needs to get more clear about that, and we'll see how the SBA, if they give any further guidance, or how the banks treat it. But that's my interpretation, and has been the general interpretation of the law at this point, is that most FinConners, let's put it that way, most people who are trying to do something online and create an income with that, if they're generating an income from that and they're going to report it on a Schedule C, then certainly this would apply to them.
Yeah. So let's talk to the FinConner that has maybe multiple businesses. They've got their blog, but then they're also doing other things on the side. Can this work for multiple small businesses?
You can only have one loan per tax ID, right? So as long as each of your separate businesses has its own individual. So if you went out there and got an employee ID number from the federal government for each of your different businesses, then yes, each of those is considered a separate entity and could qualify on its own for a loan. If you're just running everything through your Schedule C under your Social Security number, then I suspect you may only have a chance to apply for one loan in that instance. It's based on employee ID number or Social Security number. So the more of those you got, certainly the more loans you're eligible. One thing I didn't mention in the eligibility is having been in business before February 15th, 2020. So if you literally just started your business this week or last week, you may not qualify based on when you started it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's talk about the person who's saying, well, I'm not quite hit yet right now, but I do see my revenue starting to dry up a little bit. Is this something they should consider anyway if they don't feel like they're in dire need right now?
Yeah, that's a good question, and something I'm struggling with myself as someone who runs a couple of event businesses who hasn't necessarily seen some of the negative effects of this domino fall down for me yet. But we're certainly seeing slow growth in our event ticketing sales, our sponsorship sales, and then of course on the blog, as I already mentioned, ad rates have gone down, partnerships have dropped, and where we had some potential sponsorship deals ready to go, some of those have been put on pause. And so for me, that's what's happening. Each business owner needs to evaluate their own situation to determine if this makes sense for you. And I'll read what the law says. And this is what you're going to have to attest to when you take out this loan. You're going to have to make a good faith certification that the uncertainty of current economic conditions justifies the loan request to support the ongoing operations of the borrower, acknowledge that funds will be used to retain workers and maintain payroll. So the purpose of the Paycheck Protection Program is to maintain the pay that your business is driving, either to your employees, yourself, or the way I interpret it, which is kind of gray right now, also to independent contractors. So the purpose of this is to keep you paying folks on your team, and whether you were in a good financial position before this and you're like, the negative effects, they're happening, but I had a huge business savings account. I can cover this, That's really not the way to think about it, in my view. The way to think about it is what have been the negative effects to you, and then what could possibly happen in the next couple of weeks or months, all right? Because this thing is ongoing. And so think about protecting your contractors, your employees. Think about ensuring that you can be confident that you have the cash to go out there and continue the projects that you're working on right now. If there's any doubt in your mind that, you know what, I'm going to start trimming back, I'm going to start cutting back with my business, I'm going to start doing more of it myself, tell all my contractors to go away for a couple months, that nope, you need this loan then, because the purpose of this loan is to ensure that you are not in that doubtful position with your business, that you are ready to push forward, continue things as normal, and keep this economy going. That's the whole reason the Treasury is doing this.
Yeah, they want our country to keep churning, right? So I mean, that's the whole purpose
Right.
of it. That makes a lot of sense. Well, let's talk about the application process. Where do I go to apply? Do I talk to my accountant first? Do I talk to my banker first? Where do I start?
Yep. The CARES Act includes a couple of different loan programs. One is being issued by the Small Business Administration on their website. The Paycheck Protection Program is being delivered by SBA approved banks and institutions, right? So you're going to have to go, likely smartest place probably to go is to your own small business bank, the one that you're currently working with. They're going to know about you already. You're going to have an account there. You're going to maybe know the rep there. Just start talking to that person if you haven't already. They're probably emailing you information about this. At least my bank was, Chase was earlier this week, letting me know how to get the application going. Chase is going to be rolling out an online application by this Friday. The president said it last night in his press conference, and that's Friday, April 3rd. So by the time this airs, that will have already gone out. But like I said, for the April 10th date for solopreneurs, that'll be coming up at the end of this week once this airs. But yes, the banks will be the ones to deliver the application. Now, here's the cool thing is that the SBA and the Treasury have put out a sample loan application, right? So you can actually go see what kind of information they're going to be requesting and go ahead and fill out that form and see what information you need. That way, once the applications open up, the true ones, the online ones, then you'll be ready to go.
That makes a lot of sense. And I know in a FinCon community, we like to sometimes figure out the numbers ourselves and try to craft it. Is this a DIY kind of time, or should we be speaking to our accountant about this?
Probably a mixture of both. If you do have payroll, then you're going to need payroll reports to support your the loan amount, and we can get into how the loan is calculated. But yeah, you certainly need payroll reports. So you might as well talk to your CPA about it, your accountant about it, and the bank about it, just to say, what exactly do I need here? Take your best shot at it, but use the professionals and certainly around you to help support your decisions.
Absolutely. Well, that makes a lot of sense. PT, thank you so much for dropping in and letting us know a little bit about this program. Obviously, it's going to take a little bit more research because everybody's got a personal situation that's different from yours and mine. So dive into it. What's the best place for people to learn more about this? Your article is very detailed. Where can people find that?
Yeah, there's the SBA.gov. Obviously, they have up-to-date information. The Treasury has issued some guidance, like I said, and I have links to both of those resources on my own site. So if you go to ptmoney.com, right there on the homepage, you'll see a link to the Paycheck Protection Program. What are the details, how to apply, all that. So it's right on the front whole page of my site. And I'm on Twitter as well, kind of sharing up-to-date, like real-time information. So it's at PTMoney.
Excellent. PT, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Andy.